Hello and welcome to another new episode of Stages Go to Master Show Season 3. We converse with RevOps and GTM leaders from some of the most successful companies today and learn from their unique stories. Joining us today is Saurabh Kapadia, Director of Revenue Operations at Together AI. Can you give our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Nice to meet you. Excited to be here. I'm Saurabh Kapadia, Director of RevOps at Together AI. Recently joined Together AI about 3 months back, but have been in the revenue operations world for the last like 7, 8 years. My role at Together and in the past has been more focused on a little bit of operations, a little bit of revenue tech stack. In my current role, it's more focusing on the revenue systems and the operations and processes that go with it.
Superb. Awesome. I see that you're a born and bred SFTC ecosystem player. It's amazing what you could uncover just by getting deep into the tech stack. So, can you talk to me briefly about your career trajectory, the way you started and the way you end up here, and what were the key pivots in your growth as you see it?
Sure. Always exciting for because everybody's RevOps journey is very different. Mine started, my background in undergrad was studying computer science, IT infrastructure, and a little bit of finance. In my first role, what landed me towards Salesforce and revenue operations world was working actually for the University of Minnesota, where I graduated from. And it was an interesting use case for Salesforce. Salesforce was used in a non-traditional way where the admissions office was using Salesforce to manage the admissions process and students applying to the university and helping them guide through the admissions process and campus visits and things like that. So I started my journey there, was there for about 3.5 years doing as a in the business analyst role. Uh, really dove into Salesforce there, got a few certifications, really understood the how customizable Salesforce can be and all the different clouds. Got a few certifications there and then wanted to take that experience to the next level. So a big pivot was my next role after the University of Minnesota, which was at Fivetran, where I initially joined as support operations lead. And there was more moving away from the admissions use case and marketing cloud and those kind of Salesforce components to Service Cloud and understanding more from customer pain points. How do we launch a live chat? How do we support the customers where they are and understanding that use case? So joined Fivetran as a support operations lead, and then it was a startup at that point, around 150 people when I joined, rapidly growing. So as the company was growing, my role kept changing and growing with the company, which was exciting. So in my 3.5, 4 years that I was at Fivetran, I started out as support operations lead, moved into sales operations lead, managing Sales Cloud and Service Cloud. Um, After that, also was leading the system revenue systems team, so everything that integrates into and out of Salesforce. So the title changed from like support operations to sales operations to sales systems architect, and then eventually managing a team of Salesforce solutions. So managing all the processes and supporting deal desk, finance, and other functions as well. Everybody who touches Salesforce. So those were a few pivots along the journey of like interacting with support operations processes, sales operations processes, supporting a few pricing changes along the way, which was a big learning experience. Um, Also helping launch PLG and like how does PLG and the sales led motion work together hand in hand. So it was good to see that from the ground up and laying the foundations for it at a company which was growing rapidly as well. So that was a big pivot from the university's experience to a
Correct.
traditional SaaS Salesforce use case. Uh, Understood a lot about strategy, operations, different sales motions. Um, so that was pivotal. And then after the 4 years at Fivetran, I wanted to go take that experience to the next level again. And at that time joined Asana more as on the process side of things. So still under the revenue operations umbrella, but more focusing on the business process side of things. Still very close to Salesforce. So there, the journey was at a public company, so different scale, but
Yeah.
still understanding the customer customer lifecycle, how it tracks in the system, and then managing the process for our sellers and go-to-market team, and then working closely with the systems team to implement that strategy in the system. So I was there about 2.5 years, and then after having seen how the startup world and then also a public company, wanted to go back into building mode. So started looking for my next role, and then that's when I landed at my current role, which is director of revenue operations. Going back at that earlier stage, we were about when I joined, it was about 200 employees. Uh, and then new industry, larger scope, and going back into building and managing the tech stack myself. So it's been an exciting journey so far.
Awesome, awesome. I mean, this is just a wealth of knowledge, right? Very few people get to experience two zero to one stories and two different industries. Uh, I'm sure it would have been a lot of learning and unlearning when you moved from, say, smaller to bigger and then bigger back to smaller. Like there are certain things you would think fit well, and then you are like, oh, okay, that doesn't apply here because you're still learning, and that level of complicated structures don't work. So I think what I'm trying to get to is whenever you look at a CRM, and especially Salesforce is no longer just a CRM, right? It's like the lifeblood. How do you solve the jigsaw puzzle of what fits in where with respect to tech stack, like hey Salesforce, but then what fits in, what doesn't need to fit in, what can be a native capability, what need to be brought in, cost, effectiveness of investment, so on and so forth. So, what is your theory, or like how do you think about tech stack?
Great question, and it's been an evolving answer, at least for me, in my journey, because also the tools and all the tool stack that are coming to market now are very different, and they solve different use cases. So when I started out, it was more like how can we structure the data before we bring it into Salesforce. Then Snowflake and other data lakes became a big player. Luckily, my journey with Fivetran was important in this aspect because Fivetran, being a data pipeline company,
Pipeline. Yeah.
it was very interesting to see how and the power of unlocking data and bringing it all in one place. So at Fivetran, we were using Fivetran to bring all the data from multiple different sources into one place and then pulling in what we needed into Salesforce where it made sense. But all the data was still existing in like BigQuery or Snowflake, one of those data lakes. Uh, so that really unlocked a lot as far as data and insights go. Uh, but over the time, the journey has changed, at least for me, that bring into Salesforce what makes sense, but still there should be an easy access to all the data points that you need to access. So a good example would be like product data, like not every event and not every user interaction needs to be brought into Salesforce. But what where I've found more value in is structure that data, drive insights from it, and then what makes wherever it makes sense, whether it's like intense signals or an upscale signal, bring those data points into Salesforce and then highlight that to the go-to-market team at the right time on the right place, be it at the account level or the opportunity level. So that has been very powerful. And then along that journey, the tool stack, of course, the tool stack has changed quite a bit. Like there are some things that integrate natively into Salesforce. Uh, all the different apps, like be it service and customer experience side of things, or be it like sales engineering or like forecasting, all those different tools now also natively integrate into Salesforce, uh, which has been helpful in the way that there's a seamless experience for the end user, and you don't need to do a lot to manage and move the data from one place to the other, and then constantly manage that integration. Uh, all these apps natively integrating into all the different tools has really made life easy.
Yeah. So I think there is one follow-up question to this, right? So whenever you are really deeply invested in a CRM, like I learned HubSpot over the years, and I also understand Salesforce pretty well. There is this tendency to have a lot of data come into the CRM. In the sense that you want native integrations, you like native integrations because you manage. But as a smaller company, you don't have the luxury always to get the right tools that you want because of whatever reasons, right? Cost, use case, whatever. So, what is your take on when do you insist that data be natively integrated versus where you are okay to take a small chance and saying, okay, you manage the tech stack, I'll figure out how to integrate it back if I need to.
Sure. A good default for me has been like only bring in, at least at the earlier stage, only bring in data which is actionable. Otherwise, it becomes noise. So starting from my days at Fivetran, over the time there at Asana, and now at Together, even though it's only been 3 months, but I've found tremendous value in partnering with the data and analytics team. So
Yeah.
even here, after I joined, it was helpful to build a data structure, and then it was interesting to be a Fivetran customer from this after being an employee there. Uh, we became a Fivetran customer at my current role, and then using that to bring all the data in one place in Snowflake, and then partnering closely with the data team to make sure that all the data exists if we need it, and then only bringing in to CRM and Salesforce what is actionable and what would add value. Otherwise, like Salesforce being so customizable, and I'm sure everybody who's dealt with the CRM knows the pain of like having too many fields on the page layout or too much noise on the page, and then you're not finding the right fields or the right information points at the right time. So I default to having access to all the data points if we need it, but only bringing in and surfacing things that are actionable and will actually um, impact the user's journey or decisions. Otherwise, there could be a lot of valuable information, but if it's not actionable, let's not highlight and surface it.
Cool. Moving on to the flavor of the season. AI is everywhere. How is AI working for you personally, and how is it helping you work with your tech stack? Like, how is it fitting into your tech stack at which points, in which places?
Yeah, totally. Great question, and also very relevant. Being part of an AI company, it's even more forefront for me and everybody. And it's in every conference you go these days. AI is, as you said, flavor of the season. For me, I've had tremendous value in using AI for a lot of the repetitive work, which used to be manual, and then you would need like a few analysts to actually pull those data points or get insights from like just the raw data. So a good example, which has been very helpful, is just smart enrichment, because the traditional enrichment sources give you the most commonly sought after uh, data points, which are not applicable or actionable for everybody. Like for us, employee size and those things matter really less, because the employee size is not really a good indicator of where people are in their AI journey. Like a small company could be AI native and they're a good customer ICP for us. Whereas a large enterprise, even though they have a lot of employees, they might be farther
Yeah,
behind in their AI journey. So maybe not the right target or ICP for us. So what has and traditional enrichment sources will give you those data points. But what's been really helpful for me and for Together, and I'm sure other companies as well, is smart enrichment. So let's say some lead or new contact comes engages with you. How do you know whether what priority or how effective ICP match they're going to be? So for that, we're doing some smart enrichment in understanding like how much funding they have received. Do they have any founders who are like AI native or who have had previous exits or who have some VC connections? Um, so that those are really like smart indicators and intent signals for us, even more than the traditional
correct.
data sources. So we're using AI in the sense of like doing enrichment, but smart enrichment, and then highlighting like a lead score or influencing an account score in that regard.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's super interesting. We also do something similar, but our signals are a little different. So,
Hmm.
not really in that domain, but we do something on the call actions, next action points kind of thing. Like after the gong call happens, and then we have our own workflows to do a bunch of things. But yeah, interesting to hear your take on this. So, moving on, I think RevOps generally, as you grow up, together, I'm sure you're leading this function, so you have to work with many teams, right? And how do you, you know, approach communication, and how do you approach gaining stakeholder buy-in? Like how do you manage the multiple threads that go out and come back into DevOps in your current role?
Yeah, very relevant question, and something that is like front and center for me, because why I want to be in RevOps is because I get to work with so many different teams and understand the customer journey and also the internal, like who fits in where within a company. Because initially, at least, uh, as I mentioned, my background was in computer science. So when you're an engineer, you understand the engineering org and the research org, but not really the sales, deal desk, finance, where everybody fits in. So why I find revenue operations very interesting personally is because you get to work with so many different teams and understand the customer journey and all the handoffs that happen throughout the process. Um, so I find a lot of value and excitement in knowing how the different teams at a company fit in. Having said that, that also brings in a lot of challenges, coordinating, making sure everybody is rowing in the right direction, in the same direction, uh, alignment on priorities and roadmap. What has been helpful for me is communication and like over communication. Uh, what I like to do at the start, whenever I start a role or start of the quarter or the fiscal year, is just uh, a broad, like rough draft of what the roadmap is going to be, and then making sure you're meeting with your stakeholders frequently to make sure that what you aligned on at the start is still relevant and still the highest priority. Because of course, in a rapidly changing industry and also growing companies, priorities change all the time, as they should. uh, Making sure you have frequent touch points and then frequent modes of communication helps be on the same page, and then make sure that everybody's working and is bought into the thing that you are working on as well. Because oftentimes that whatever RevOps works on, the consumer is a different department. And if you align only at the start on what the priority is and you work on it, and then by the time you deliver it, that could not be a priority for the end user or the department, the stakeholder. So making sure you have frequent touch points, making sure that they're equally bought in, because you don't want to build something and it's shelf-ware, and then the priorities have completely changed. So frequent touch points, making sure you're aligned from the start, and making sure, which is like RevOps gives you a good window into the entire company's priorities as they shift. So you're not like on an island by yourself, which helps. But yeah, frequent communication, and this is like easier said than done, because it takes up a lot of time, and you're talking about the same thing over and over. But making sure that everybody is still on the same page, and then they're bought in to whatever the project or initiative is goes a long way. Because if there's no alignment, then it becomes hard to interact as the project goes on.
Yeah, yeah. One of the key learnings for me recently has been the channel of communication as well. Right, you could choose to
Hmm.
communicate or over communicate, but there are certain things you just have to have a call with. And there are
Totally,
certain things you can't do it on Slack. It just lands the wrong way, and yeah, it's
totally.
just
That's
just a
why
lot of
I like defaulting to meetings over like async connections and feedback. Meetings just like, even though you could meet about a certain topic, then that just opens up and gives the platform for discussing something else, and just like makes your job so much faster. So I personally like meetings, even though Slack is more convenient, but meetings are definitely helpful for me, especially starting out in a new role.
yeah.
And I'm also personally a big proponent of going into the office and meeting people in person. I know, so that's why the big shift back to in office has been helpful for me, especially in a new role.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can imagine. So, lastly, touching on the topic that we pride ourselves on. So, can you walk us through how do you design your comp plans? Like, how do you think about comp plans, and what are your North Star metrics when designing comp plans?
Sure. And it changes, as I mentioned, like it changes based on how the business is changing. It changes based on the scale of the business and the company. And also, like as I mentioned with Fivetran, I went through a few pricing changes. So that brings in a lot of like ambiguity, uncertainty, especially when you're changing a pricing, like something fundamental like that. Um, Also, it's different. It was different with different pricing models. It's also different with a new industry where it's a growing sales team. So together, the sales team is fairly small, but like growing in size. So it'll probably double by the end of the year since when I joined within like 6 months. So it's hard to design a comp plan which like fits all those use cases perfectly. So I think that's where a good partnership with sales is very helpful. Good partnership and openness of like that it's a journey, it's a learning journey, and then we're gonna learn and update as we go, and then see how we're trending towards whatever we decide. So you start out with like in a changing landscape, you start out with like a rough plan, and then you iterate more frequently in a more set landscape, like when I was at Asana, the incentives have to be more like defined. They're more like they're not changing as often,
Yeah.
maybe once a year. So that's kind of the cadence. And then going behind the science of like what should the incentive or a good incentive or comp plan should be, I think it should, again, not rocket science, just it should tie to the business incentives. Like if the goal of the business to increase the number of seats and then increase then the comp plan should not be dollar based but seat based. So that's one thing. Yeah, just aligning your company goals and incentives to comp plan, I think, is of course the North Star. Having said that, like sometimes it deviates, and then that's where things like spiffs and then things like uh, complex comp plans where like a majority of the portion could come from the company initiative, and then the 10 or 20% of the variable pay can come from different things that you want to drive the behavior on. So that's where like I've seen flavors of like a team comp plan versus individual comp plan of like a mixture of both. Uh,
Yeah.
so again, like there are multiple flavors of this, but also it you have to factor in the how frequently is the business changing and how frequently is the company size, scale, and the industry changing with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then at the end of the day, also figure out a way to keep it simple enough so that the people who actually sell understand the plan. That's
100%. And
also
that's
like a
where
toughie.
totally you could like communicate the plan at the start. Like people spend a lot of time because their paycheck depends on it, so they read through the comp plan very like thoroughly. But of course, like in a changing landscape, as I said, like the people designing the plan have limited information. The people also digesting the plan and whose paycheck is going to depend on it also have limited information and knowledge. So uh, it's a good exercise to poke holes in the plan at the start and then align on it. But also, like as you go through, you have to iterate and then have to keep an open mind of that. Hey, like something we didn't think about, and let's factor that in. Um, so yeah, and that's where like sales comp tools come into play. Where like giving visibility to the reps early on and more frequently. You don't like if you wait until the end of the cycle to give them visibility, then you're just
Yeah.
dragging on that sales period and yeah, that fiscal period or that sales period much longer because you're giving visibility at the end and then you have to like negotiate and then go back and forth on those like whatever you're giving visibility on those
Yeah.
numbers or those metrics. So giving visibility early and then more frequently and then in a more transparent way is definitely helpful and avoids dragging on the period.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. You have covered like a gamut of topics today, and I absolutely love listening to you. Before we sign out, I think what would be interesting is from you, based on your experience so far, if you had to give one or two key pieces of advice to someone who's aspiring to be a RevOps professional, what would those be?
A few key pieces of being successful in RevOps is just like taking a lot of interest in what different departments do and what your different stakeholders might want from you. I think taking an active interest in that definitely goes a long way because different people want different things. And then being in RevOps, I think it's your job to like connect the pieces and then see the entire landscape. So that's one thing. The another thing is managing expectations and managing priorities. I think again, being in the center of a lot of departments and stakeholders, naturally every question flows through you, or other like requirements come from all directions. So having a good method to the madness of like what is your request intake process, how are you communicating, how are you prioritizing that, uh, just having a good method for that will save you a lot of like swivel chairing and like managing expectations, and then making sure that you're successful in your job and not burnt out.
Thank you so much, Saurabh. It was a pleasure talking to you. Hope you had a good time chatting with me as well. Well, that brings us to the end of this insightful episode of Go to Masters. A big thank you to Saurabh for sharing his experiences and valuable insights. Remember, you can tune in to us every week to learn more from game changers driving hypergrowth companies across the globe. Go to Masters is brought to you by Everstage, your trusted partner for transforming the way business handles sales compensation. I'm your host, signing off.